In the chaos of war, most stories become statistics, numbers on a screen, headlines that fade as quickly as they appear. The world moves on, and the personal tragedies behind those numbers are often lost, buried beneath the relentless tide of conflict and breaking news. But sometimes, a single name breaks through the noise: Stephen James Hubbard. His story is not just another entry in a grim ledger, but a deeply personal ordeal that demands to be heard. At 73, Hubbard was an American teacher living a quiet life abroad. He was no soldier, no spy, just a man with a passion for education, caught in the wrong place at the worst possible time. He had dedicated his life to helping others, never imagining he would become a pawn in a global conflict. For months, his family endured agonizing silence, clinging to hope as days turned into weeks. Then, the devastating truth emerged. Hubbard was being held deep inside Russia, locked away in the notorious penal colony of Mordovia, a place infamous for its harsh conditions and isolation. His ordeal is not an isolated incident. It's part of a disturbing pattern: Americans seized and used as political pawns in Russia's high-stakes game of international brinkmanship. Each case is a reminder of the risks faced by ordinary people in extraordinary times. Hubbard's journey from a peaceful life in Ukraine to the cold, unforgiving walls of a Russian prison is a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict. His fate is a chilling example of how quickly lives can be upended by forces far beyond their control. His story exposes the blurred lines between civilian and combatant, and the chilling reality of hostage diplomacy. In today's world, even those far from the front lines can become entangled in the dangerous games of nations. The fight to bring him home is not just a matter of diplomacy, it's a moral imperative, a test of our collective humanity, and a call to action for all who believe in justice and compassion. Before his capture, Stephen Hubbard was simply a teacher, an American retiree who found purpose teaching English in Izium, Ukraine. He wasn't a political activist or a government agent, just a gentle, grandfatherly figure beloved by his students and neighbors. His decision to stay in Izium, even as war loomed, was rooted in his deep connection to the community. When Russian forces invaded in 2022, Hubbard's life changed overnight. Suddenly, his American citizenship made him a target. He wasn't captured on a battlefield, he was taken from his home, an innocent civilian under occupation. To Russian soldiers, he became a valuable asset, a pawn for political leverage. His quiet retirement was shattered by the brutal realities of war. Hubbard's abduction was as sudden as it was terrifying. Russian soldiers stormed his home in the dead of night, shattering the fragile sense of safety his family had built. The sound of boots on the floor, the shouts in a foreign language, and the glint of weapons under harsh lights turned a peaceful evening into a nightmare. In a matter of minutes, the world he knew was ripped away. After that night, Hubbard vanished without a trace. His belongings remained scattered around the house, a haunting reminder of the life that had been so abruptly interrupted. The silence that followed was deafening, as if the walls themselves mourned his absence. For over a year, his family endured agonizing silence, desperate for any news. Every day was a cycle of hope and despair, waiting for a phone call, a letter, or even a rumor that might reveal his fate. The uncertainty gnawed at them, making each passing day feel heavier than the last. Russia denied any knowledge of his whereabouts, stonewalling all attempts at contact. Officials offered no answers, only cold indifference, leaving the family to navigate a maze of bureaucracy and misinformation. The uncertainty itself became a weapon, inflicting maximum psychological torment. Every unanswered question, every sleepless night, was a reminder of their powerlessness. In July 2023, after months of anguish, the family finally learned he was alive, but imprisoned deep within Russia's notorious penal system. The relief of knowing he was alive was quickly overshadowed by the grim reality of his captivity. Soon after, Russian state media aired a coerced confession, falsely branding him a mercenary. The broadcast was a cruel spectacle, designed to justify his detention and strip him of his dignity in the eyes of the world. The sham trial that followed was swift and secretive. Hubbard was sentenced to nearly 7 years in a remote prison camp, denied any real defense or chance to speak for himself. The outcome was predetermined, a mere formality in a system built to silence dissent. His fate was sealed by a system that values political objectives over human rights, where justice is a tool of power rather than a shield for the innocent. The life he built in Izium, his friendships, his work, his dreams, was gone, replaced by the grim reality of a Russian prison cell. The vibrant community he once called home now felt like a distant memory. Hubbard's story became a chilling example of how innocent lives are weaponized in war, a stark reminder of the human cost behind political conflict and the resilience required to endure it. Hubbard is now held in IK-12, a penal colony in Mordovia, Russia's infamous prison land. These are relics of the Soviet Gulag, notorious for harsh conditions, isolation, and psychological torment. Prisoners endure overcrowded barracks, poor sanitation, and brutal winters with little heat. Forced labor is routine, food is scarce, and medical care is almost non-existent, especially dangerous for an elderly man like Hubbard. Mordovia's remoteness cuts prisoners off from the outside world, deepening their despair. Foreign detainees face added hostility, targeted as political pawns. By sending Hubbard here, Russia sends a message. He's not a common criminal, but a high-value political hostage. This is the same region where other Americans like Brittany Griner have been held. The Kremlin is maximizing its leverage, using suffering as a bargaining chip. Russia claims Hubbard was a mercenary fighting for Ukraine, a charge his family and the U.S. government call absurd. The so-called confession was likely extracted under duress, providing a false veneer of legitimacy to a political show trial. In reality, Hubbard was a 73-year-old English teacher with no military ties or combat experience. The accusation that he manned a checkpoint is laughable to those who know him. The U.S. State Department has officially declared him wrongfully detained, recognizing the case as political hostage-taking. This designation shifts his case to high-priority hostage negotiations. Russia's propaganda aims to dehumanize Hubbard and justify his treatment, but the truth is clear. He's a victim, not a soldier. His only crime was being an American in the path of war. Hubbard's health has deteriorated drastically in Russian custody. Reports from released prisoners describe severe internal issues, injuries, and an inability to walk. Conditions made worse by neglect and abuse. Allegations of torture, electric shocks, beatings, starvation paint a grim picture of his ordeal. His suffering is deliberate, meant to break him and increase his value as a bargaining chip. His sister, Patricia Hubbard Fox, has become his fiercest advocate, campaigning tirelessly for his release. The U.S. government's wrongfully detained status has brought in specialized hostage negotiators. They demand his immediate release and consular access, demands Russia continues to ignore. The combined pressure of family advocacy and government diplomacy is his best hope. Hubbard's case is part of a troubling pattern in Russia's playbook, detaining Americans as leverage in international disputes. These detentions are rarely about justice. Instead, they are calculated moves in a high-stakes geopolitical chess game, where human lives become bargaining chips for political gain. Recent cases, like those of journalist Evan Gershkovich and teacher Mark Fogel, show that prisoner swaps are possible, but they always come at a high price. Each exchange is fraught with tension, uncertainty, and the painful reality that freedom is never guaranteed. Families wait anxiously, hoping for good news, while governments weigh the risks and rewards of every negotiation. The best hope for Hubbard is a diplomatic breakthrough, a negotiated exchange that could finally bring him home. Behind closed doors, diplomats work tirelessly, navigating a maze of demands and red lines, searching for a solution that will satisfy both sides without setting dangerous precedents. But time is running out. Hubbard's age and declining health make every day in Mordovia a potential death sentence. The harsh conditions of the Russian penal system take a heavy toll, and the fear grows with each passing week that he may not survive long enough to see freedom. If diplomacy fails, he could be left to languish, another casualty of political gamesmanship. The stakes are not just personal, they are a stark reminder of the human cost of international conflict, where individuals can be lost in the shadows of power struggles. For his family, the weight is agonizing, filled with sleepless nights and unanswered questions, yet they refuse to give up hope, rallying support, reaching out to officials, and keeping Hubbard's story alive in the public eye. The fight for Hubbard's freedom is a desperate struggle for justice, set against the backdrop of war, shifting alliances, and international intrigue. It is a battle waged not just in courtrooms and embassies, but in the hearts of those who believe in his innocence. His fate now hangs on the outcome of high-stakes negotiations, balance between hope and despair, freedom and oblivion. The world watches, waiting to see if justice and compassion can prevail over politics and power.